Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad. Marshall Sutcliffe with Ian Duke. We're ready for round number 7. 2 more rounds to go today, this one and the next one, and then we're going to call it a day, see who's on the top of the heap. But for now, we've got Jeremy Dezani versus Luis Scott-Vargas. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with R&D Insider Ian Duke. We're ready for round number 7. This is standard. We've got Jeremy Dezani, former Player of the Year 2014, down in the feature match area. Take a look at Jeremy here. And he is poised and ready to meet his match here. Luis Scott-Vargas. Take a look at Luis. 6-time Pro Tour top 8 competitor, Hall of Famer, etc. And it looks like they're all ready to go. Now, matchups-wise here, brand new standard format here. We've got Black-Green Aristocrats versus Obzon Company. And, you know, having seen Jeremy play a little bit, Ian, he's got kind of a unique take on this collected company build here.
Yeah, I like his deck quite a bit. It looks to me like he took, you know, the classic company shell, maybe Bant Company as a starting point, but then actually tweaked it to be excellent against the metagame. So he's adding in colorless mana sources for things like Matter Reshaper and Eldrazi Displacer. He's got Archangel Avacyn in there. He's got Hallowed Moonlights off the sideboard. So he's clearly teched out his deck for this expected metagame.
Now, on the other side of the table, talking about tech, we've got the Black-Green Aristocrats deck here for Luis Scott-Vargas and many people, in fact, from Team Channel Fireball and Ultra Pro. They teamed up to test for this Pro Tour, and you see some high-powered hitters here, Blister Pod into Elvish Visionary.
That's right.
This type of deck actually uses, you know, relatively low-impact cards to make things go.
Yeah, I mean, when I think tech, I certainly think Blister Pod and Loam Dryad. Those are at the top of my list here.
How about Cryptolith Right?
Well, that card's actually, I mean, that's a really sweet card here, and I think this deck uses it really, really well.
Agreed.
In particular with Eldrazi Scions, you can actually tap the Scion for mana and then sacrifice it for mana, so it's like a 2-mana creature at that point.
This is reminiscent of the deck that Luis used to actually win the Pro Tour back in 2008 in Berlin. It was an Elves deck, and all of a sudden, all of his creatures just turned into mana elves. Passing the turn back here to Dezani. Early stages, players are kind of setting up. Interesting thing that I see here, though, right, is that Dezani with Obzon Company, he doesn't have that many ways to actually get rid of creatures on the other side, right? There's no sweepers or amazing removal spells
right,
here, right?
And I suspect that's one of the major reasons why Channel Fireball went with this Black-Green Aristocrat-style deck, is that the two, you know, big boogeyman decks with the targets on their head coming into this were, you know, mono-white humans or white X-humans, and various collected company decks, especially Bant Company. And those decks just can't afford to play a lot of removal. They don't play a lot of sweepers. And so if you can do a better job gumming up the ground and dominating the ground with resilient creatures and token generation, you can actually just beat those decks at their own game. And
so Luis is going to fire off a collected company here, and boom, 2 Zulaport Cutthroats. Often those act as the win condition in this deck.
Yeah, I would say Zulaport Cutthroat and Nantuko Husk are the 2 key creatures in this deck. So really nice for Luis to see 2 Cutthroats.
Look how explosive this is. 3 lands.
Yeah, let's rewind 1 turn, Marshall, and actually on Luis's turn 3, due to the Cryptolith rights, he had 8 converted mana cost worth of non-land permanents on turn 3. That's like, we're talking,
wow,
like, you know, elf combo style explosive draw here. So
unbelievable. And thanks to the Cryptolith right, he's able to convert that effectively into mana. And look at his board state. He is now dominating this game. In the meantime, Nissa Vastwood Seer is going to come down for Jeremy Dezani, get him a forest. He's got that Death Cap Cultivator to say, well, I can make a little extra mana as well. In fact, he's got a pair of them on the battlefield here. And yeah, he's also got himself a Catacomb Sifter. But I got to say, you know, sitting from where we're sitting here, Ian, it just looks like Jeremy's playing fair and doing a good job of it. I mean, to be fair to Jeremy, he's curving out quite nicely here.
Oh, and wow, Luis just shows him the Westvale Abbey.
So he sacrifices 5 creatures, which is enough to do 10, and that leaves him at 9. He makes Ormondal. Ormondal has haste, attacks, and kills him.
Wow, was that a turn 5 kill from Luis?
Missing a land drop, I think, too.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for game 1 here in round 7. We'll be right back after this.
Unravel the madness. Shadows over Innistrad is now available on Magic Online. Explore the new set by signing up for Magic Online at mtgo.com.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Madrid, Spain. We're in round number 7. We just saw Luis Scott-Vargas, impressive fashion, I have to say, win that first game against what was ultimately a pretty darn good draw from Jeremy. Like I said, he was actually doing things there, but Luis was the one who had the over-the-top explosion there. All right, so why don't we take a look at one of our side tables here where we've got Justin Cohen and Katsuhiro Mori. Both of these players have won Rookie of the Year in their career, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
You only get one season window to make that happen, and both of these players were able to. Justin Cohen, of course, off the strength of a second-place finish at his first Pro Tour. That will catapult you right into the Rookie of the Year standings here. Also, update from the table next to this one, that was Brad Nelson winning Game 1 versus Christian Calcana with his red-green Goggle Ramp deck, and that thing is capable of some really crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And apparently he did some pretty crazy stuff in that game to pick that one up. Now, as we join here, this board state looks pretty well developed here between Justin and Katsuhiro. Let's look at the big picture here, Ian, and try to figure out what are these players trying to do fundamentally to try to win the game.
Yeah, so this is largely the same matchup that we just saw here. Katsuhiro Mori looking to be on Bant Company rather than Obzon Company, but it's really the same basic game plan. Justin playing for Team Ultra Pro. I do believe that Channel Fireball and Ultra Pro collaborated to some degree.
That is correct.
So I think
to a large degree.
To a large degree.
They straight up play tested together.
Okay, so they're just all on the same Black-Green Sacrifice
deck? I'm not
deck?
sure if there's any dissenters, but yes, they all had the deck, and anybody that wanted to play it could.
Okay, so yeah, we just saw Luis's deck in action. Justin Cohen's on, largely the same deck, if not the exact same 75. So yeah, the game plan is the same here. It's the Sacrifice deck just wants to totally gum up the ground with tons and tons of creatures, get value out of Nantuko Husk, out of Zulaport Cutthroat, out of Westvale Abbey, and just sort of beat this company deck at its own game. The company deck, on the other hand, it does have going for it more powerful creatures. They are larger bodies. They have special abilities like Reflector Mage and Duskwatch Recruiter. So, if the Sacrifice deck gets an awkward draw where it's not getting its key combo cards, I can definitely see the Collected Company deck taking over in the mid to late game, but
definitely. I think the hard part for the company deck, because look, it has more sources of card advantage, right?
Yes.
That deck runs Tireless Tracker. You can see on the battlefield, although it's been transformed, it runs Duskwatch Recruiter. They can sit there and generate big pieces of card advantage where, you look over at Justin Cohen's side and there's not really anything that generates cards there, right? It has to kind of stand on its own. Also, the creatures on Katsuhiro's side are just bigger, generally speaking.
Right.
The problem is those synergies, right? Like what we saw from Luis there. No matter what, if you don't mess with what Justin Cohen and company are doing here, they just get to do what they want, and what they want to do is more powerful than what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that what the Black-Green deck really has going for it is more value per mana spent, or I guess more value per mana spend per turn, especially with the Cryptolith rights here. Just in that, your creatures aren't as good at fighting, but all these little synergies add up in various ways that you're really maximizing the value you get out of them.
Okay, I think we should jump back to our main table here, Ian, as I want to keep up on Jeremy Dezani versus Luis Scott-Vargas. And as you saw in the first one, sometimes we look away for a minute and the game just ends.
Yeah, that's true. And largely, these matchups are pretty similar. It's a Black-Green Sacrifice deck against a Collected Company deck, so we might as well focus in here on Luis and
Jeremy.
Yep.
So we'll do that. A pair of Sylvan Advocates are a nice start for Dezani, as they're, two of his more aggressive creatures coming down early in the game and able to apply pressure to Luis's life total so that he doesn't have the luxury of just getting everything set up perfectly.
21.
In the meantime, it's Blister Pod, Loam Dryad, and as well as a Zulaport Cutthroat off of Triple Forest here for Luis Scott-Vargas. So not an amazing draw like we saw the first time, but a good draw again for Jeremy Dezani. And here's a Collected Company, though, while these two Sylvan Advocates are attacking, and this could be a big swing for Luis Scott-Vargas depending on what he hits here.
Yeah, Luis is sitting in pretty decent shape here. Looking at his hand there, he had...
Oh,
wow.
Kind of
partial miss on that.
Yeah, partial miss is a good way to put it. He ended up with just an Antuco Husk, but I got to say, that's not bad here, as he's going to go ahead and block Blister Pod. He's going to chump, and the Husk looks like it's going to just gobble up one of the Sylvan Advocates, and it does. Wow, that was big.
Yeah, and Luis's deck now running on all cylinders. He's got a Zulaport Cutthroat, an Antuco Husk, and a second copy of Collected Company in his hand. So those are all really the key components that his deck needs. And, you know, from here on out, he just kind of needs to assemble, you know, various value creatures, and he's got what he wants.
By the way, here, we've now reached a stage of the game where both players are just playing Collected Companies.
Yeah.
Let's see who hits better. So far, again, Luis hit a really good card, but only one. And it looks like Dezani has hit a Matter Reshaper and a Catacomb Sifter most likely. Though he does seem to be thinking, so there could be some choice here. Can't really see what he got there. Yeah, it was in fact Catacomb Sifter and a Matter Reshaper for him. That was on Luis's end step. Pretty swingy with Collected Company, right? Like, board states change wildly.
Yep, very much so. Just a hugely, hugely powerful card. Very difficult to play against as well.
Looks like Eldrazi Displacer now from Dezani. So what can he use this for? He does have that extra colorless mana from the Scion if he wants to use it now.
So Eldrazi Displacer can just do a ton of different things here. First of all, if it targets a token, that token doesn't come back from exile. Really important interaction to know. It can also, you know, remove an attacker from combat. It can tap down a blocker. It can rebuy enter the battlefield triggers, like on the Catacomb Sifter, for example. So yeah, just a lot of options that card gives you. The unfortunate thing about it is that it's pretty mana hungry.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be a couple more turns before Jeremy really wants to start sinking a lot of mana into that. So it's probably going to be more of a threat of activation for the time being than actually being activated a lot.
Okay, a second Matter Reshaper is what Jeremy decides to do instead of leaving up that activation. So he's just building out his board here. And this is another Collected Company for Luis Scott-Vargas. Wow, so this is the second one of the game.
And there's a Zulaport Cutthroat and a Catacomb Sifter. Okay, so we could see something huge happening here from Luis. How many creatures is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 of which are Zulaport Cutthroat. So not quite there as far as the pure drain plan just yet, but that could change.
Approaching.
Yeah. And I do see...
Uh-oh, this is Luis doing
Visionary.
math.
Yep.
Never what you want to see when you're sitting across the table from him. Jeremy has put up quite a fight here with this draw, and in fact the first game as well. So
yeah, actually this might turn out to be lethal here because there's a Elvish Visionary and then a Nantuko Husk. Brings the creature count up to 9.
an Elvish Visionary in Luis's hand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that brings the creature count up to 9. Which, okay, I guess that's not quite enough for the drain plan. It's close.
It's funny listening to you, sort of work your way through it. Luis is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He's tapping on the table and saying, do I have enough? Is it enough?
But there's also a possibility Elvish Visionary draws into, say, like another Catacomb Sifter or something along those lines. There's also, you could also scry before playing the Elvish Visionary is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, he will get pretty crimped on mana here at some point, though, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the Cryptolith right this turn.
So it looks like Luis played the Visionary, and with the draw trigger on the stack, he did sacrifice it in his scrying and found the third Cutthroat. So that's just way overkill at this point.
So sack, you take 6, play a land, play a husk, sack, and you're dead. And that does it. Luis Scott-Vargas very quickly winning his match against Jeremy Dezani. Again, really highlighting the fact that the Bant Company deck does very little in the way of interaction, right? Luis was pretty free to do what he wanted that game, and he really took advantage of the fact that this mid-range grindy deck just can't really get at your creatures or do anything along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really, really impressive showing from that Black-Green deck.
Man, this deck is scary.
Yep.
Okay, let's jump up to our back table here. Now, we mentioned it earlier that we've got Brad Nelson back there, as well as Christian Calcano. And Brad, in impressive fashion, won the first game. We're going to see what happens here in game number 2. Well, we came just in time, didn't we? This is Dragon Lord Atarka. Wow, and Tim Willoughby, he's down on the floor. He says he believes this is the 4th time that Dragon Lord Atarka has been cast, as it's been Reflector Maged every single time.
There you go. So for those of you at home, if you're wondering how to beat Reflector Mage, just cast Dragon Lord Atarka 4 times.
We were talking about the tech earlier, you know, the technology, as they say. Why he draws another Dragon Lord Atarka off the top. Nelson's down to 14 life. Looks like he hasn't quite been able to get things moving forward as far as the damage race goes. But a Dragon Lord Atarka will do a pretty good job of that. And Christian's going to fall down to 12 here just after the 1 hit with the big 8/8 flying trample. You guys call it flample in R&D, or is that just me?
That is just you.
Right, okay, noted.
There was a lot of Atarkaing you for 8, though, in R&D.
God, that's terrible.
It's something.
Do me a favor and don't let Luis hear that, just for my sake. All right, so it looks like the Bounding Krasis is going to hit the red zone, dropping Brad down to 11. Brad says, sure, take it. I still have a Dragon Lord Atarka. I'm going to kill you in 2 turns quite easily from here.
Yeah, sure.
And it's on Calcano to do something. Brad says, go to attacks. Maybe he's got another Krasis. Nope, just take 8 more. Calcano's down to 4. This is not looking good for Christian. And here's a World Breaker just to add insult to injury here. Kind of a cool interaction here. He can target the Lumbering Falls, but Christian can save it, but it does force him to tap out to do so.
Yes, that is true.
And he does, in fact, target it. Christian, and the reason is because he has something else he wants to play, which is a Collected Company, but there's a response, and that should be game here.
Yeah,
it's
this
Fall
is
of the Titans.
For like a bajillion here,
Because
right?
he copied it with the Pyromancer's goggles here as well.
And it surged.
And it surged. So, yeah, GG.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it. Brad Nelson. Man, I got to tell you, you know, if it seems that if you want to go big and crazy in Standard, Brad has the deck to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just like, yeah, he cast Dragon Lord Atarka, whatever, right? Like, that's just pedestrian at this point. It's the, you know, Pyromancer's goggles with Fall of the Titans that was surged out twice, you know, for 20 or whatever. That's the big flashy play. So that's it for that match, though. Brad Nelson wins 2 games to 0 over Christian Calcano, and they are dropping like flies in the feature match area here, Ian. We've got Luis Scott-Vargas and Brad Nelson both winning their matches 2-0.
So what else do we got going on
Well,
here?
what else we have going on is what we affectionately refer to as Shuffle Cam.
Shuffle Cam.
So
Okay. Good luck. Good luck.
So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to our King of the Hill table, where normally our King of the Hill table, but we actually moved it up to the front for this one because that was Dezani. So we're going to take a look at Sam Tharmaratnam. He's playing Mardu Control, and Kentaro Yamamoto, who's on, you guessed it, Bant Company, card deck that we've seen quite a bit here, and this is Game 3. So
very nice.
Exciting Game 3 conclusion here.
So Sam is on Mardu Control, you said?
That's what it says.
That's not something...
Let me grab his deck list here.
Not much of a known quantity so far this standard season, huh?
Totally not at all. So I'm going to grab his deck list, and Ian, you and I, we're going to explore this together.
That sounds great.
That's what's going to happen. All right. Well, maybe I lied. No, you got the deck list. There it is. What are we looking at here that while the players are getting their mulligans finished up? What kind of deck? You know, I would assume a mid-range type deck here.
Yeah, it's mid-range-ish. Looks like it's got a bunch of Planeswalkers. There's Sorin, Nahiri, and Chandra, Flamecaller. Goblin Dark Dwellers, and another really powerful card that, you know, sort of struggles to find a home a little bit early on in the metagame, but certainly worth brewing around. And then, you know, host of removal spells, some card advantage in the form of things like Read the Bones. So yeah, I mean, it
What
just looks
about
like
sweepers? I'm always curious about sweepers. Again, and this is usually in response to the menace that is Bant Company.
Right. So there's been a lot of talk about the sweepers in the format and how they match up against the two big decks coming in here. And the two sweepers that get talked about a lot are Languish and Kozilek's Return. Now, Kozilek's Return only does 2 damage, so it's a bit of a liability, the front half of it, against Bant Company, because a lot of the creatures have 3 toughness. However, this 3-color mid-range deck gets to play Radiant Flames, which is sort of the forgotten red sweeper, right? Which can go up to 3, and so that does take care of things like Sylvan Advocate and Catacomb Sifter and Reflector Mage, of course, being the other big one.
Sure.
Deathmist Raptor. So yeah, there are a lot of things that Radiant Flames gets that Kozilek's Return doesn't get. So pretty big draw to a 3-color deck there. And we actually saw earlier in the tournament Brian Kibler playing with a Jund deck that also featured Radiant Flames.
So a similar approach.
Similar approach, just playing with green instead of with white.
Okay, well, we're underway here in game number 3 between these two players. Kentaro, nothing. And same thing for Sam. So neither player has actually played anything but perfect mana here for Sam Tharmaratnam. Turn 3, he's got all of the Mardu colors and in beautiful basic lands. And here's a strong play from Kentaro. Nissa Vastwood Seer. I'm curious, do we have Kentaro's list here?
I do.
How many Nissas does he have in the main? It usually
Just
only
one.
runs 1.
Yeah, just one.
Just found that card very impressive in this deck.
Yeah, it is a very good card, but there's a lot of competition for 3-drop slot in these Collected Company decks, naturally.
Okay, Kentaro passes the turn back, and wow, here we go. Our first sighting, at least for me in the booth here, of Nahiri. Looks like Nahiri is going to go upstairs here, plus immediately, discard a mountain. And this is one of the great things about Nahiri the Harbinger. You can take a look at her stats on the right-hand side, but this is a 4-mana Planeswalker who now is at 6 loyalty. I mean, that is a lot of loyalty. You know, a lot of times you'll talk about Planeswalkers that can protect themselves. They come down, maybe kill a creature, which, by the way, she can do as well. But if she doesn't, she does a pretty good job of just being tough enough to take a hit, and you see that exact same thing here. Now, Sam is going to be assuming a Collected Company here, I would be assuming, right?
Yes.
From Kentaro. 4 mana past the turn is pretty suspicious. They do play other flash creatures like Bounding Krasis, though. Okay, so Tharmaratnam's going to fire off a Read the Bones here. I got to say, you know, I like Sam's position here. Now, if Kentaro does fire off a Collected Company, that could change that. And he does have one in his hand. Curious to see if Tharmaratnam's going to use Nahiri to take out Nissa or not. It is a risky proposition, as Nissa does have the ability to become untapped at instant speed in this deck.
Yeah, with Bounding Krasis, huh?
Exactly. So he's going to take the safe route and just plus Nahiri again. Now, assuming that a Collected Company is incoming, again, we know that he does have one, but if you're Tharmaratnam, you're going to be assuming that as well. She may survive, but if Yamamoto hits twice, Nahiri's not likely to survive the attack, as basically all the creatures have 2 power. It looks like it's going to be Reflector Mage. Oh, Kentaro doesn't like that. It's Reflector Mage and Duskwatch Recruiter, I believe, are the 2 cards that he's hit. But I saw a little head shake from Kentaro. It's interesting. He doesn't show too much emotion at the table. I think he was hoping for something a little different here.
Yeah, now is there a Jace in there as well? I thought I saw a Jace earlier when he was handing out the cards.
Well, that might be why he's in the tank so hard here. Yeah, there absolutely could be.
Yeah.
Let's find out. Yeah. Okay, so there's the Duskwatch and the Jace. Oh, wow, he just can't decide. So if he gets a Reflector Mage, that means he gets to kill Nahiri. But he'd much rather have a Jace going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I think that's what he was so pained about by choosing there.
Yeah, the other thing is, Sam's deck does also run one mana removal in the form of Fiery Impulse. So he's probably also weighing the possibility that Sam could have a Fiery Impulse, say for the Nissa, for example.
Totally. Now, he didn't happen to have it here, or if he did, he decided not to use it. And Kentaro is going to attack everything at Nahiri. That's going to transform the Duskwatch Recruiter. And he does nothing else for the turn. Interesting. Ooh, 6 mana? What is this?
Ooh,
Archangel,
Linvala.
excuse me, Linvala, the Preserver.
Yeah, she hasn't been promoted to Archangel just yet, Marshall. She's
yeah, I guess I'm
it's
so
her
used to
senior
seeing
year of
Archangel Avison.
school.
Yeah, but this is great. He's going to get both triggers here. He's going to get a 3/3 flying angel because Kentaro controls more creatures, and since he was behind on life total, he's going to gain 5 and jump up to 23. So, a big stabilization play here for Tharmaratnam.
Yeah, and we've talked about just how impactful big flying creatures are against the various collected company decks. Actually, we saw Eldrazi Sky Spawner like dominating a game earlier just as a 2-power flyer.
Yeah.
So what do you think 8 power worth of flying is going to represent against this Bant Company deck? Pretty big deal. That said, Kentaro did pass the turn with 5 mana open this time.
Yeah.
And we know what that means.
That's
Here
right.
is an Archangel, indeed.
Right, I was a little early, but she has arrived to the party. Archangel Avison hits the battlefield. Eldrazi Displacer off the top. Now that does tell us a little bit about what's going on in Kentaro's list here. Also, if you were paying good close attention there, you would have seen that Kentaro drew a Wastes last turn.
A Wastes.
Yeah, so he's playing Eldrazi Displacer in his list, and,
Oh,
and he
I
just
see.
drew one off the top of his library as well.
Okay, so something there to fetch with Evolving Wilds, presumably?
Correct. Yep, that's exactly right.
Very cool.
He's got 4 copies of Evolving Wilds in his list here as well.
I always love when Wastes shows up. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's the underdog of lands, right?
It absolutely is. It's
But-
clinging to that basic status.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's there to do, right? That's
Yep.
the upside on it.
But that's a big deal here because Kentaro, as he mulls over his options, one option is just to play the Displacer, play the Waste, and then you can just blink the token. And you mentioned this earlier, Ian, but they don't come back.
Yeah, that's true. You don't, however, want to blink the Linvala. That's
That's a
definitely
little
not a
less-
wise idea.
Okay, it looks like Tireless Tracker, though. Ooh, this is going to be kind of a card explosion here as he follows up with an Evolving Wilds, which is effectively 2 clue tokens. He's got one of them right now from Tireless Tracker, and he'll be garnering himself another one.
Card Explosion. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that as a playtest name next time I put like
Oh.
a blue card draw spell or something in a
I'll
set.
tell you what, in 2 years, let me know when the card comes out.
It probably won't be named Card Explosion when it actually
No, I
comes
know.
out, though.
Yeah, I get it.
No,
I want to know which one it was. Some powerful stuff in hand for Tharmaratnam here. You can see he's got the Dark Dwellers and the Chandra Flamecaller.
Yep. Chandra, I think the big deal here. So are we in Sam's main phase right now?
Yeah,
we
I
are.
think what's happening is there may be maybe one of the players has asked for an Oracle text. I see the judge has their phone out. Yeah, there we go. So, one of the cards might have been non-English, and Sam just wanted to double check to make sure that he knew exactly what the card read.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in Sam's main phase here, I believe.
So, I mean, it looks like a Chandra and -4 would be pretty sweet, but I wonder if he's worried about, something like Dromoka's Command, adding a counter to Avison, something along those lines.
Would be annoying, especially considering that Avison would be transforming in that scenario as well.
Right.
So Sam decides, it looks like an ultimate price from this angle, though not 100% sure. Yeah, it's an ultimate price, I believe, on the Tireless Tracker. There we go. Now
Yeah, so this is a sacrifice of the Evolving Wilds in response, getting another clue.
Mm-hmm. So he's got 2 clues, but we do have a non-angel token, non-angel creature dying here. Which means that in not too long, Avison's going to get real angry. So Sam has a window here to deal with that. He's just passing.
Okay. Okay, so that makes sense now that he was just getting clarification on Avison. Just wanting to make sure probably that it deals 3 damage to all of Kentaro's creatures as well.
Correct.
I think that's his plan here is, so Avison goes off. and
Boom.
takes away Kentaro's board. So actually being a beneficial thing for Sam.
Well, and this
to
is
force the
big time,
transformation.
right? Like if Sam has an answer for the Purifier here, he could have just put himself in a great position sitting there with the Linvala left over.
Yeah, and even so, I mean, Linvala can just straight up trade for Avacyn if need be, and then all of a sudden Sam is untapping with like Goblin
Oh.
Dark Dwellers.
Wow, this worked out great for Thamar. I mean, he did have to worry a little bit about Dromica's command, but
Yeah.
didn't have it, and they traded, and that worked out beautifully for Sam.
Yeah, I like that line. That was great.
That was sweet. Now, it's not over yet, though. Kentaro Yamamoto immediately plays another Tireless Tracker and adds to his growing clue collection up there. He's got 2 of them. He had cracked one on the last turn before passing the turn back. So Thammaratnam still has his hands full, but I got to say, we know at least a few of the cards in his hand here. Let's take a look. And Goblin Dark Dwellers plus Chandra is a big deal. Wow, he's even got a Secure the Waste, and we see Ultimate Price going to take down the tracker before things get even more out of hand.
Okay. And if Kentaro does go ahead and sack those clues, okay, just sacrifices 1 response. Now here comes Chandra, and this is probably +1ing for 6
Probably
damage.
just take 6, yeah.
Yeah.
With only 2 mana, Kentaro cannot punish Sam here by flashing in something or doing anything of that ilk. So Chandra Flamecaller is going to run rampant on this board state.
Yeah, this is looking really good for Sam here in this 3rd game of this match.
I love how he played that Avacyn against Kentaro. He turned the tables on him and made Avacyn a real liability there for Kentaro Yamamoto. Killed 3 of his creatures, his own creatures.
Yeah. Moral of the story is you've really got to be careful creating legendary angels, right? They might backfire on
I
you.
said she was going to get mad.
However, Kentaro with a handful of cards, thanks to those clues.
Indeed, Duskwatch Recruiter being a continual source of card advantage for him. He's going to start off with that. He's also got an Eldrazi Displacer you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. And Sylvan Advocate. So he's left up the ability to activate his Duskwatch Recruiter, and also in the process has put up 6 power on the board, so not too shabby. But I got to say, I like Sam's position here with Chandra on the board at 23 life.
Yeah, I do too. So I imagine we'll see Goblin Dark Dwellers come down here. Now, the Sylvan Advocate does have 5 toughness, so Chandra can't sweep it away without actually losing the Chandra herself. But Goblin Dark Dwellers could rebuy, say, an Ultimate Price, or it could just go for a Read the Bones for value. Okay, or Sam does go for the -5 on Chandra.
Yeah, it does make some sense because he knows if he doesn't have another answer.
Oh, okay, and that makes sense. He just has a second Chandra there. So in comes another 6 points of damage from those 3/1 elemental tokens, knocking Kentaro down to 8. And now things are pretty scary for Kentaro because he now needs to start ensuring that he has blockers, right? Otherwise, his life total is just going to get really, really pressured. There is also a Shambling Vents there for Sam, which can represent the 7th and 8th points of damage.
I got to say, I like the way Sam's played this game.
Yeah, this has been impressive. Here we're seeing yet another novel way to attack these company decks, which is just having tons of red sweepers, powerful planeswalkers, Goblin Dark Dwellers, nice pinpoint removal spells.
You don't see it often, but, we were talking about how Chandra, oftentimes not great at sweeping some of the creatures on board, but it is interesting to note that you can do what Sam did. If the board's stable enough, she can just tick up the chain and then, wrath everything.
Yep.
It's not like she's locked in at doing 4 to everything, and that doesn't come up that often, but...
Yeah, and I think I like where Chandra is positioned in the metagame right now. As we were talking about earlier, 3 is really the key toughness that you want to be able to sweep at, and Chandra just does that so beautifully because it leaves her with 1 loyalty counter afterwards. And, in Chandra coming down, sweeping the board, and then actually sticking after that is just such a powerful play.
That's a great point, Ian. Yeah, that price point, as we say, is really attractive right now. So here's Eldrazi Displacer now for Kentaro Yamamoto. And a Jace, so it keeps coming here. I wonder if we're going to see Sam just minus once again to keep killing the key creatures on Kentaro's side. does he have here? What is he going to start off with? A Read the Bones. Very nice. Now, again, we keep saying it, but the card that Sam's going to be thinking about is, again, Collected Company here, right? If he goes, okay, fine, I'll -3, or even if he wants to play conservatively, -4 Chandra here.
Yeah, he does have to think about and respect it, although the previous turn, I think if Kentaro had a Collected Company, he would have left it up the previous turn just to ensure that he could counter-pressure the Chandra, and he didn't. So unless he exactly drew the one Collected Company in that one-turn time frame, I think it's unlikely that he would have it here. So
let's see what Sam thinks. By the way, Sam hit some nice off of that Read the Bones.
Oh, did you see what he got?
Sorin Grim Nemesis. Anybody?
That's a nice one.
Yeah. So his hand is Goblin Dark Dwellers, Sorin Grim Nemesis, Secure the Waste, and a Ruinous Path for good measure. All right, so he does. Yeah, it looks like he did -4 Chandra as well. So he played around Dromica's command there just to make sure that everything was gone. And it was. And then he followed up with Goblin Dark Dwellers on Read the Bones. My goodness, this deck is firing on all cylinders here. It feels like he built this to beat Bant Company watching it this way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Because Kentaro's had a perfectly reasonable draw by all measures, and he just cannot keep up with the removal suite that Sam's brought to the table here. Eldrazi Displacer might be the last gasp here for Kentaro Yamamoto as Sam's closing in on the victory here in Game 3. Yamamoto behind on all axes, cards in hand, board state, and life total. And it's up to Tharmaratnam just to figure out how he wants to finish things off. He's going to want to shut the door on Yamamoto as quickly as possible here just to limit the number of top decks that he can find. And in fact, he is going to go for the kill here on multiple levels. He can plus Chandra, and that's it. Kentaro Yamamoto extends the hand. Sam Tharmaratnam is at 6-1 now. Great start for him.
Yeah, and another really cool deck.
Totally. Looks like we've got one more match still going on in the feature match area here. That would be Justin Cohen and Katsuhiro Mori. And then we're going to jump right over. Take a look in. This is game number 2. Mori's up a game here.
And if you remember from earlier, this is, again, a Black-Green Aristocrats deck, or Black-Green Sacrifice deck, if you will, versus Bant Company this time. So lots of permanents on the battlefield. Looks like we're mid-combat here.
Hey, this is beautiful. They just cleaned up a bunch of them for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
One thing I'll note here about Mori's side, 2 active Planeswalkers could be a huge problem here for Justin Cohen. Whoa, is Mori really at 1 life?
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is a lot of scries.
I was going to say, this looks awful for Justin Cohen, but with 1 life there, all he's looking for is a Zolaport Cutthroat.
He needs a Cutthroat. That's all he needs. He's got 2 creatures.
Well, and I guess he needs a way for a creature to die, but...
But he could just attack. Oh, I see,
okay,
but it's not enough
transforms.
Because of Avacyn. Yeah, he could just attack both of them, right? Avacyn must block one or else he dies, so that would have done it. But he didn't find it, and Mori takes the match 2 games to nothing.
Okay, so it looks like, you know, the Black-Green Company, or sorry, the Black-Green Sacrifice deck has looked well positioned against these Bant Company decks, but it's not an unwinnable matchup for Bant.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, the inability of the Bant deck to interact, kind of catching up with it there for sure. But great stuff down in the feature match area. I know a lot of you at home, welcome back to the booth, are excited about these new standard decks, and as well you should be. We've seen some really cool stuff coming out, especially from some of the big teams. This Black-Green Sacrifice deck specifically looks pretty interesting and kind of scary. All right, Rich Hagan is at the news desk with more from around the tournament.
Thanks so much to Marshall and Ian Duke there, bringing you all the action from the penultimate round of Swiss. As we head on towards the final round, again, Swiss pairings just reduce the undefeateds 50% every time. Looks like we're down to just 3. Valentin Mackle of Austria, 7-0. Luis Scott-Vargas, Hall of Fame, 7-0. And former Player of the Year, Brad Nelson, 7-0. It's going to be a crazy last round. And tomorrow morning, of course, very possibly 2 of them will compete for the last undefeated record in the building at 9-0. So, We know quite a lot about Luis Scott-Vargas and about Brad Nelson, but perhaps not quite so much about Valentin Mackel. We should do something about that, and conveniently enough, we have. Brian David Marshall, is that a Valentin Mackel I see beside you?
Yes, Rich, it is. We're just watching the last of the feature match empty out behind us, and I am here with 7-0 Valentin Mackel, one of the most animated players on the Pro Tour. Valentin, tell me about what deck you're playing and how your tournament's gone so far.
I mean, pretty well, I think. I can't complain. Even I can't complain about a 7-0 record. And I'm playing Band Company. It's like slightly unusual company list. Most of the people are playing a lot of chases. I decided not to, since they're just got worse with the new changes to the format. I mean, you don't have fetch lands, so it takes way longer to activate to actually trigger it. You actually need your lands, so you don't want to discard them because you have just so much to do with your mana. And so I cut some of them, and I play like Leaf Glider Gilder. It's just a 2-1 that produces a green mana. And yeah. So good. so good so far. Sideboard is spicy as well.
All right, well, maybe we'll try to get a look at that tomorrow. Meantime, so you get to 7-0 at a Pro Tour. You've been pretty deep in a Pro Tour before. What's your goal from this point at the tournament?
Obviously, there would be Platinum. I mean, like to have it would be really nice. I like the tokens. I would love to have a token of myself. So yeah, I need a Accent 4 record for that. So at this point, maybe manageable. Have to be really lucky.
I was under the impression you maybe had a more social media-oriented goal for this tournament.
Yeah, I want to beat Patrick Dickman in Twitter follows. It's like he's around 3,000 up right now. It's very hard. But follow me at Nameless4, number 4, God. Thank you.
All right, Patrick Dickman, it's election season. He's campaigning, even though we're here in Spain. I think if you want the votes, you're going to have to dance us off as we send it back to Rich Hagon at the news desk.
That was undoubtedly one of the more surreal 2 minutes of my life. Fantastic. Valentin Mackel is such a terrific guy. You know, he's very hard to play against because he's very good and he's very gregarious, and a lot of players play here and he plays out here. And that can be quite disconcerting to a lot of people. But boy, oh boy, can that guy play Magic. Great to see him take that leap from Grand Prix, well, just traditionally constant top 8s. I think he's at 5 now in the Grand Prix level. Finally piecing it together at the highest level. Watch out for Valentin in the last round against either Brad Nelson or Luis Scott-Vargas, or maybe he's the one who's paired down to someone at 6-1. But in any case, just tremendous stuff by Valentin. Now, those of you who are regulars on the Pro Tour viewers, and if you're not, you're very welcome. It's great to have you along. But a lot of you will remember the story of Adam Jansen and his son, Trent. Trent is a budding artist, and every Pro Tour, whatever deck Adam Jansen plays, Trent designs tokens. Sitting at the front of the news desk right now, I don't know whether we can get a look at this, are the tokens. So over here, we've got a zombie with, man, always with the summoning, bit of flavor text. Another zombie, broken but alive. Tamio's journal entry 199, and then you've got a couple of Thopters there, you've got a clue token, and finally, come my crew, the last of the zombies. So great job, Trent, great job, Adam, in a shocking turn of events. Adam Jansen's waiting to do a deck tech right over there. So let's do that.